Okay, I've gotten the rough grinding of the blade pretty much out of the way. Now there's a large burr up here because of course we're grinding in this direction. I've taken it from the 50, and then this is an 80 grit, and in between the two there is a ceramic 80 that I use. It's still pretty aggressive, but I just use it to remove the 50 marks, and then what is left are just there's a less aggressive 80 that I use. So now we're starting to get ready to move up into the finer grits from there. We just have layout line visible on the corners, so that's what I want to approach with up to 320, maybe even 400 to 500 grits before I actually make those disappear, and that's going to make subsequent finishing a lot easier. I'm ready to taper the tang, so I still have my scribe lines here. So I'm going to start doing that. I go back to the aggressive 50, and we'll get it nicely tapered up and keeping square till we just start affecting this scribe line right here. And then we'll move up in the progressive grits and probably finish the tang with around an 80. No need to get too much finer on that since we want epoxy to stick to the steel in that area. But it's coming along. It's lost a lot of weight up front, so I'm eager to see what the tang taper offsets. I've got to get rid of that burr too, because that's a pretty sharp little edge. So I'll take it over to the emery wheel and knock that down. I just wanted to give you a quick view of what it's looking like to this point. It's starting to turn into a knife. Okay, it's my normal setup for tang grinding. 3/16 hole and a 3/16 pin on my push stick. So that just sits. I mean, that really fits tightly, and it doesn't just pop out with the vibration of the machine. So I always set my platen towards forward of the wheel, so once it comes over the edge of the platen, it breaks that way. So I could keep that scribe line fairly, roughly even with the top of my platen. I don't have to worry about getting grit marks up in here where I don't want them. So it's the same as I always do. The face of this is ground nice and flat. And so that's where my pressure really comes from for most of the grind. And my left hand is simply supporting it. So I'm going to push, and I just start pushing in nice and flat. I move it, side to side just a little bit as I go. And we're back to the aggressive 50 grit ceramic belt. Takes the metal down pretty quickly. Now some knife makers will put a wheel attachment on here, and they will grind a valley down here, so it just leaves their platen to deal with the outer edges of the taper because this material's already gone. I've not seen much of a need for that myself. I'm sure it would make it a little easier for me, but I have seen them when they're finished, they still have a shadow of that valley, and that's a lot of epoxy. I would rather have steel, and I would rather have the weight of steel back here, which is why I grind my tapers just from flat stock. So I will show you just a little bit of what I'm doing, and then camera's getting out here because I like to really hunker on this thing, and I like to sight down, and I'll be right up on this, and you wouldn't be able to see me anyway, and there is no room over here to place my camera to where you get another shot. So we'll turn the grinder on, and I'll just kind of show you the rudiments of what I'm doing. So every now and again you want to turn it over and you want to look. And so what I need to do when it's in here is I need to put a little more pressure on what will be the left side of the tang, because I want to keep my line square as I climb up, and then every now and again you need to check back on your scribe line back here just to see how far away you are. And it's the same principle grinding a taper on a tang it is grinding this bevel. You want to approach both finish lines, this and your scribe, at just about the same time. It's more of a learning by feel thing. Alright, so I'm starting the unit back out. You don't want to put too much pressure when you're doing this. Let your belt do the work. Alright, so that's starting to look more like it. Now I'm just going to continue this all the way up. And I'm going to move the camera out of the way so I can get in here on my work and not make a mistake. Alright. This came from the water tank. And so that's what I'm talking about. A nice straight taper. As you see, we have just started influencing the area around the scribe line. Right in here. We're just at our layout line down here. It's still visible right there on the edge. Right up in here. So what I want to do at this point is this is when I put it in my rotary vise and I start approaching the finish line with draw filing. Still have the other side to do, and when I'm there I'll put this in the rotary vise and I will clean everything up with a big flat draw file. So just wanted to show you, but that's half of it. I have the other side of the tang tapered now, and I've put just some Sharpie on here, and this is where I will finish. I just left a little bit of my scribe line bare so I can see it, but really it's just a matter of draw filing down. And what this is a nice flat and fine file. It's going to show me high spots, and there are always going to be some. What you don't want is any kind of bow where you're going to have to try to curve your handle material around that curve, because it will eventually let go and you'll get gaps in that joint of your handle where it joins the steel. So draw filing is just straight strokes back. It leaves a good finish, which we're still going to have to rough up with some 80 grit sandpaper prior to epoxy. But I'm just going to keep going down. You see my Sharpie start to disappear. And I'm going to keep just applying even pressure all the way across until we clean all this Sharpie away. Then I feel like we're reasonably flat. I do take it over and lay it on the surface plate and see if I can rock it. And if I can't, you got to be happy with that. Every now and again, grab a file card and clean your file. Keep it cutting. This doesn't take that long. It's not heat treated yet. O1 steel works nicely prior to heat treat. Well, really all of it does. It's after heat treatment that you don't want to try doing this. So I'm not finished with the other side, but I just wanted to show you how we just rotate the vise, start working this side. This side's going to clean up a little bit faster, it looks like. But you see, high spot in the center, and then we have just, when I say a low spot, I'm probably talking not even 1,000th, probably not even a tenth. A few strokes of this file is going to have this whole tang nice and shiny side to side. Stick with your high spot, concentrate on hitting your high spot, and then you can watch it creep into what are the low spots. Resist the temptation to try to tilt your file to get that. You're not doing yourself any favors if you take a shortcut. And as I said, grab a file card. Just take some common everyday chalk. And it keeps the file from loading up with pins. It keeps it cutting. It's similar to the old mechanics trick. They would take a bar of soap and scratch it and get soap in under their fingernails and then work on the car or whatever they're doing.
and they didn't get grease and grit under their fingernails because the soap was already there. It's the same principle. Now I realize there's going to be a sandwich of epoxy between my handle material, liner material if I use it, and the steel, but still you'll want to try to get it as even as you can. Now Tankering the Tang has taken all the little countersink, if we put them in there, off these holes, so that will be redressed with the countersink to give a nice radius to this sharp corner where the hole takes off into the steel. Those are known as stress risers. A crack can form there during the stress imposed by rapid cooling when we heat treat. So we'll make sure that we do that. It's just second nature. Why did I countersink the holes to start with before I taper it? It's just habit, and it's a good one. Alright, so that's going to be good enough. I feel like we're straight. I'm going to flip this over and do the first side. And then I'll see you when I've gotten this face and this face brought up to polish and we're starting to fit the guard.